What's up, guys? Welcome back for another Twisted Tea video. Today, I'm going to run through my top 10 crime scene mistake pet peeves. For this list, we'll be looking at specific examples from high-profile, well-known cases and mistakes that, from the outside looking in, seem to be common sense. Number 10. While keeping your mouth shut seems to be the most obvious way to keep yourself from getting caught, it's ironically also one of the most common ways people set themselves up to be caught. The Lane's Angels of Death, a group of nurses turned serial killers, learned this lesson the hard way. They operated out of a hospital in Vienna, Austria, under their head angel. The Lane's Angels of Death overdosed, drowned, and poisoned at least 42 patients, and it's been speculated that their number of victims is closer to 200. They were caught and convicted in 1989 after a doctor at the hospital overheard them bragging and joking in the hallway about their most recent kill. Due to max sentence laws in Austria, all of the Angels of Death had been released from prison by 2008. Number 9. There is an ever-growing amount of CCTV cameras around the globe. Currently, there are around 50 million in America alone, and they are hidden in plain sight around every turn. Almost no move that you make in public goes unwatched, and every card transaction can be traced. This is something that you would think everyone is familiar with at this point. Nevertheless, there is an astonishing number of predators that nonchalantly walk into department stores and buy the supplies that they intend to use for their crimes. Joel Michael Guy Jr. was 28 years old when he killed and dismembered both of his parents and left his mother's head boiling in a pot on her own stove after they had threatened to cut him off financially. When police performed a welfare check on his two recently retired parents, they found a despicable amount of evidence pointing toward their son, Joel Jr. But the most compelling evidence was the CCTV footage that caught Joel Jr. the week leading up to his parents being murdered, buying all of the supplies that were ultimately found still at the crime scene, including but not limited to food-grade hydrogen peroxide, a pipe wrench, extension cords, an industrial timer and an industrial bleach sprayer, a K-bar knife, and 2 blue tubs that his parents' bodies were found left in pieces and submerged in muriatic acid in. Joel Guy Jr. was even seen after the murders at their local Walmart buying himself first aid supplies because of the wounds that he sustained on his hands when his father tried to fight back. Joel Michael Guy Jr. was sentenced to life in prison and is currently serving his time in the basement of the Knox County Jail in Tennessee, awaiting transfer to his permanent home at an unnamed prison. Number 8. Police have been tracking footprints, scents, and trails since long before DNA evidence was ever thought of. In fact, footprints have been studied so intently that investigators have all but perfected the science of analyzing a shoe print and being able to tell you what shoe, make, and model produced the print, and they can even tell you how tall or heavy the person was who left the print. Orenthal James Simpson, who you might know as OJ or the Juice, is well known for holding the record for the most rushing yards in a single NFL season during the 1973 football season, where he played as a running back for the Buffalo Bills. He's even more well known for the senseless and horrific murders of his wife Nicole Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman. OJ was accused, tried, and acquitted for the murders, but it is widely speculated that he was guilty, with around 86% of Americans believing that OJ did do it. This was without a doubt the most widely publicized case in American history, and actually made history with cameras being allowed in the courtroom for the first time. During OJ's trial, a bloody size 12 footprint was presented as evidence from a very rare, very expensive pair of Italian luxury shoes. The shoe print came from a pair of Bruno Magli Lorenzo boots. There were only 200 pair of this specific shoe made in a size 12. When OJ was questioned about the shoes, he was quoted saying that he would never have worn those ugly-ass shoes. Naturally, pictures surfaced later of OJ wearing the exact shoes that had left the bloody footprint at the scene, and OJ coincidentally wore a size 12. The Bruno Magli shoes that OJ was seen wearing in that infamous picture were never found. But his lawyers argued that with there being 200 pair, that picture proved nothing against their client, and OJ was eventually acquitted and released. Number 7. One of the most classic modern-day moves of a guilty person who knows that they will eventually become a person of interest in a murder that they just committed is calling or texting the victim's cell phone, and those messages are typically suspicious. The guilty party will sound overly concerned when their victim has only been silent for a short amount of time. Lacey Peterson went missing on Christmas Eve 2002. Her husband, Scott, instantly rose suspicions when he started to do interviews with different news stations. He was heavily criticized for showing little to no emotion. On the day that Lacey went missing, Scott took a last-minute fishing trip to a marina that was about an hour from their house. After fishing for only an hour, Scott started the journey home, calling Lacey several times and leaving her this voicemail. Lacey Peterson was pregnant at the time that she went missing, and her unborn son Connor's body was washed up in the bay where Scott had admitted to be fishing on the day that she went missing, and Lacey's body washed up the following day. Scott Peterson was convicted in 2004 for the first-degree murder of his wife and the second-degree murder of their unborn son. He spent nearly 20 years on death row before the death sentence was overturned last year in 2020. Scott Peterson is currently spending his life sentence at the San Quentin prison in California. Number 6. One of the most idiotic choices a killer can make is killing someone close to them and then burying the victim in their own backyard. But that's just what Lori Vallow and her husband Chad Daybell did. Lori and her newest husband Chad had formed a small doomsday cult that had been on a murder spree where they were playing God and labeling those close to them as light or dark, and then picking off the people that they believed were dark. The timeline of their murders started to unravel when Lori's kids, Tylee and JJ, came up missing. After nearly a year of searching, the bodies of JJ and Tylee were found buried in the yard of Chad Vallow Daybell's rural home in Idaho. Chad and Lori Vallow Daybell are currently both awaiting trial for the deaths of Tylee and JJ, as well as several other people close to them. Number 5. When someone goes missing or is found dead, everyone wants to get involved and help crack the case. But in some instances, the lizard who caused the tragedy will insert themselves into the case a little too much, and their body language and fascination with the case will result in the target of the investigation being put on their forehead. Lauren Giddings went missing from her apartment shortly after she graduated from the Mercer Law School in Georgia in 2011. During the investigation at her apartment, just hours after she was reported missing, journalists and news reporters were at the scene interviewing neighbors, friends, and law enforcement when a reporter got the news that the dismembered body of a woman had been located in a dumpster next to the complex where she lived. The reporter mentioned the body casually to a classmate of Lauren's that had claimed to have been her friend. His body language and reaction gave him away instantly.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
McDaniels was sentenced to life in prison and is currently serving his sentence at a penitentiary in Middle Georgia. Number 4. The top 3 motives for murder are love, money, and power. When love is the motive, there is often a love triangle or a love affair involved that has sent someone into a crazed crime of passion. Thinking that law enforcement won't find out about your mistress is a surprisingly common mistake that is made that ultimately brings the case to a head. In August of 2013, Shannan Watts and her 2 daughters, Bella and Cece, went missing from their home in Colorado. Just a few short hours later, the case unraveled, and it became clear that her husband and the father of the children was responsible. He had been seeing another woman for only about 5 weeks and decided to off his entire family in an effort to obtain a new life with his mistress, Nicole. He lied about his affair until police told him that they already knew about her and had her in an interrogation room. Chris Watts was found guilty for the murders of his pregnant wife and his 2 daughters and is currently serving 3 consecutive life sentences on top of 48 years for the unlawful termination of a pregnancy for the death of their unborn son. He was not given the possibility for parole and is currently spending his life in a cage in the Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. Number 3. This next mistake has been attempted so many times that it's almost cliche at this point. While it makes sense to stage a robbery to commit a murder and it seems like it could work, Jennifer Pan didn't think about what would happen after the robbery she staged. Jennifer's parents were what the Asian community refers to as tiger parents. They were extremely overprotective, and her dad pushed education over everything else. He even chose what career path Jennifer would follow. In high school, Jennifer started to forge her report cards and even forged her high school diploma when she didn't graduate. Then she forged an acceptance letter to an elite pharmacy college. She went as far as buying textbooks. Her entire life was a lie. Jennifer's parents had even demanded that she not see her boyfriend anymore. And while Jennifer was convincing her parents that she was a successful young woman, she was actually living with her boyfriend and not attending college at all. When her parents followed her to her boyfriend's house one day, she was caught in multiple lies. Her parents took her home and put her on lockdown. They took her phone and her car and gave her an ultimatum, but Jennifer gave herself a third option. Her boyfriend Daniel hooked her up with 3 hitmen, and they put their evil plan into motion. For only $10,000, 3 men came to Jennifer's house and staged a robbery to off her parents, but they didn't steal anything. There was a Mercedes and a Lexus in the garage, and there was cash money laying on the kitchen counter. Unfortunately, Jennifer's mother succumbed to her injuries at the scene, but her father miraculously survived. After being in a coma for a while, Han Penn came out of his coma and remembered everything. He described to police an entirely different story than Jennifer had been feeding them. He said that he saw his daughter, unbound, come down the stairs speaking in a friendly manner to a white man who was holding a gun. Surveillance video from a house next door proved that Jennifer unlocked the front door and then flashed a light in her bedroom off and on to signal that the hitmen could come in and kill her parents. Jennifer Pan, her forbidden boyfriend Daniel, and 2 of the hitmen were sentenced to life in prison, and the 3rd hitman pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. Jennifer was also given a non-communication order stating that she could never speak to anyone in her family again. Number 2. One of the silliest mistakes a killer can make after they've done their deed is calling 911 and giving their alibi right off the bat instead of focusing on the person they're claiming to have found dead. I'm going to take a sillier approach at this one because I found this amazing 911 call and I just can't not share it with you all. While I don't believe this woman killed anyone, this is epic. This woman gave her mailman a scratch-off ticket as a nice gesture. When he won a significant amount of money, she attempted to take it back with force and then called 911. Listen to this.
What was that, man? Oh my God! He's not missing again! Okay, the ambulance is almost there. Just tell me what happened. I gave him a flight ticket! Sounds like he's just in shock, man. No, he won $200,000. And he just fainted? No! I smashed it! And with a flying pan and took the ticket back! What was that, man? He started breathing again.
Number 1. Like I mentioned earlier, the 3 most common motives for murder are love, money, and power. One of the dumbest mistakes a killer can make is taking out a life insurance policy on the person they plan to kill, and then to add insult to injury, more often than not, the killer will call the insurance company within days of the death, drawing suspicions to themselves when they may not have been a suspect already. Michael was a real estate agent. He had a beautiful daughter and an attractive wife, Denise. On Michael and Denise's 6th wedding anniversary, he went out hunting close to their home in Tallahassee, Florida. He told his wife that he would be home by noon, but when he didn't come home, a search went underway. Michael's boat and truck were found close to where he was supposed to be hunting. They originally thought that he may have fallen into the alligator-infested waters, but it was bitter cold at the time, and alligators don't typically eat in cold water, and they don't eat people whole. But none of him was ever found, and no one saw him at the lake that morning. 6 months later, Michael's waders, jacket, flashlight, and hunting license were all found in the water. The flashlight was still working and the hunting license was still legible after 6 months of being submerged underwater. In Florida, they typically won't issue a death certificate or legally declare a missing person dead until 5 years after they go missing. But after only 6 months and when all of his items were found, Denise asked for his death certificate. She used the evidence that had just been found in pristine condition as her evidence that he was deceased. 6 months before Mike went missing, there was a life insurance policy taken out under his name for $1.5 million. And Denise was the beneficiary. Mike's best friend Brian sold insurance and had put the policy into effect. Then the full truth came to light. Denise and Brian had been having an affair for a year when Mike went missing, and then they got married. Denise or Brian have never been arrested or charged, and they are currently living together in Mike's house in Tallahassee, spending the money from his life insurance policy. What do you guys think of this one? Well, that's it for me today, guys. Let me know down below if you like this style video. I have lots of top 10 video ideas that I would love to produce for you guys if that's something you're interested in seeing. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel on your way out. I hope you all have a killer day, and I'll see you down in the comments. Peace and love.